Hey everybody, Bearded Rogue here, and today I'm going to talk to you about a game idea that I've had for a long time, and it's kind of like my grail game design idea. I've just picked it back up to start working on it again. It's something that I work on periodically, but I didn't mention it in my previous video about what I'm working on because I don't have a prototype yet. I just have a lot of ideas on paper, and I'm starting to actually make those much more concrete as of today. But I'm a huge professional wrestling fan. I've liked professional wrestling since I was a wee tiny lad. Some of my earliest memories are watching WrestleMania with my dad, seeing Hulk Hogan slam Andre the Giant, listening to Roddy Piper trash talk, Jimmy Superfly Snuka jumping off the cage onto Don Morocco. Like, all of that stuff was happening when I was, just about to elementary school, a really little guy, and I kind of followed wrestling since then. Like, we used to go to the video store in town and get the pay-per-views the day that they would come out on VHS and watch them, and while we were always behind whatever was current, like, we knew when they were going to hit the video store so we could go pick them up and watch them. My first live wrestling event, and the event that really had me fall in love with wrestling in a whole new way, was I went to Champaign-Urbana, because I'm from Central Illinois originally, and they had an event which featured The Undertaker versus The Ultimate Warrior in the final match. And I was a younger kid, and The Undertaker scared me to death at the time. Since then, he's become probably my favorite wrestler of all time. What that man has done in the industry is just mind-boggling. So he's become one of my favorites, but at the time he was the most terrifying villain ever. He was running roughshod over everybody. And the Ultimate Warrior fought him, and the Ultimate Warrior lost and was carried out of the arena over the Undertaker's shoulder in a body bag. For my young mind, this was the most terrifying thing I had ever seen. I was sure the Ultimate Warrior was dead, everything was wrong and horrible with the world, and I was sad going home. Like, the long drive home became a, horrible drive home. And then, later on, we saw another TV program where the Warrior was up and fine and everything was working, and I suddenly clicked. Like, it suddenly clicked that it was a story. And that was the moment that I went from being a fan of wrestling, the sport, the kayfabe athletic contest, to wrestling the drama, wrestling the pageant, wrestling the show. I became a smart mark, to use the parlance of the industry, and started to become really interested in all of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. Well, that long intro is just to bring you to the Monday Night Wars. Monday Night Wars, for those not familiar, were the ratings battles back and forth between the WWE, which was the WWF for most of that time, and WCW, World Championship Wrestling, based out of Atlanta. WWE had started a program called Monday Night Raw. It still runs to this day. And it was filmed live in front of an audience, and it just kind of kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and becoming this huge cultural phenomenon. Well, Ted Turner bought Jim Crockett Promotions, which was one of the small regional territories, and Ted Turner at the time was a billionaire, and ran all of the Turner Network Television and the Turner Broadcasting Station, lots of TV stations. And he put Jim Crockett Promotions on there and renamed it WCW, and eventually decided to go head-to-head with the big name in town, the WWF, live on Monday nights. So they were both running multi-hour-long shows live on Monday nights, and for a while, Ted Turner's pocketbook allowed him to kind of dictate things. Like, he was ahead in the ratings, he was starting to kick WWE's butt, and Vince McMahon had to figure out a way to grow brand new talent, and find a way to pull himself out of that. And eventually Vince McMahon won, even though he had less money. He had a deeper roster, and was able to kind of bring his group together There was a lot of politics on WCW's side that I won't go into, but he was able to kind of bring everybody together to work together, and we ended up with Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock and other household names out of that whole fiasco. It was the most exciting period in wrestling, as both sides were constantly trying to outdo each other in the quality of their ring work, the quality of their promos, the outrageousness of some of their stuff. It was, Jerry Springer era, so you had, all sorts of sex and violence and swearing and sexual innuendo and all the stuff that before had been kind of taboo during the rock and wrestling era, because both of these companies were competing for a live market share, and ratings were king. So all of this is the grounds for my idea for this game. So this game, the Monday Night Wars, is what I'm calling it right now, basically has the players in control of a wrestling promotion. Whether it's WCW or WWE or ECW, one of the smaller promotions at the time that focused on hardcore wrestling and blood and violence, or even more modern promotions could be thrown into this, since while it's based on the Monday Night Wars, just the idea of head-to-head promotions going against each other kind of spans time. So you could throw in TNA and Ring of Honor and Lucha Underground and ICW and New Japan Pro Wrestling and Japan Noah, and as many federations as you wanted to. I want them all to be kind of asymmetric. The two starter ones, the two that I want to definitely have in the game, will be WCW, which will start with more money, and WWE, which will start with a deeper roster. And so it's somewhat of an asymmetric starting position, but it's primarily an economic Euro game. You're using money to acquire talent, wrestlers, who are your resource. Now, wrestling is scripted, and everybody knows this. However, wrestling is scripted for a purpose. You decide who wins matches and who loses matches based on what's going to earn you money. You decide who's going to fight each other based on what's going to earn you money. It's just like the Expendables is one thing that I always look at. People paid a lot of money to see Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jean-Claude Van Damme and Jason Statham and all of these guys in one movie, because they all were draws. They all had their own following. So, you throw all of them and Bruce Willis into a movie, and suddenly you've got a lot of different reasons to come look at it. Well, wrestling is like that. And since it's all about ratings, you're using your wrestlers to put on matches. So basically the way it would work, and the way wrestling worked at the time, is you would have your live show once a week for that month. And in this case, the idea, and eventually they had multiple shows with multiple hours. So the idea here is that you'll have a round, and the round will give you a certain number of actions. Right now I'm leaning towards 5 actions, because they both had about 5 hours of television on per week. And these actions are what you will use to build your pay-per-view card. So you'll have a player board in front of you that actually has spots for you to put wrestlers in. And you'll place your wrestlers in, and as wrestling is scripted, you'll determine who's going to win or lose. And you'll earn ratings based on who wins or loses. Wrestlers will earn push, which will make them more valuable. So as you build up a wrestler as a commodity, it will get better, and you'll be able to then use that now better wrestler to earn better ratings in the future. So it pays to invest in your talent. Of course, you also have to pay your talent. So going back to the asymmetric starting position, Vince McMahon, or WWE's promotion, has a much deeper roster. The guys may not be mega stars at the beginning of the game. However, he has more of them, and if he invests in his talent, then he can use that to earn ratings. Build these guys up over time, make them into megastars, and then have them fight each other. Whereas Ted Turner has a bigger pocketbook, so he can afford the better wrestlers or the more well-known wrestlers right off the bat. So in the actual storyline, Ted Turner started buying up Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage and all of these other guys who were like household names. He started buying out their contracts because he had basically unlimited funds to do so. So that's kind of the starting position for those two factions, as it were. So you'll use your money to acquire wrestlers, and you can acquire wrestlers from other people. That's something that was done quite a bit back in the day. So you may want to assign a wrestler to the pay-per-view card early, because a wrestler will not walk out of a contract. So you may want to assign them earlier in the round if you're afraid that they're going to be bought out from under you, but at the same time, there may be other things that you want to do on your turn. But you'll basically build your pay-per-view card, which will be the multiple matches that will take place. You'll decide all the winners, and then at the end of that time period, so you'll have 4 weeks with 5 actions each. At the end of that time period, everybody will score their pay-per-view cards, and that will determine what your ratings are and how much money you make. So you may go for more money, you may go for more ratings, or you may try to go for more of a balance of the two. You may work to develop talent for later on in the game, or you may look more towards making more money so you can try to steal other people's developed talent. I want either one to be viable, but you'll go ahead and play that, and right now I'm looking at like just 3 months, so you would basically have 15 total actions. That's not right. Yeah, I've kind of lost track of it. Like I said, it's not developed yet. I need to get everything out on paper. But basically you would have 5 actions a round, and then you would have 4 rounds, so you'd have 20 actions each pay-per-view card, and then you would do 3 pay-per-views, so 60 actions total in the game is kind of what I'm looking at. And the actions would be things like assigning wrestlers to matches, or adding stipulations, or using things to promote the matches, like having a wrestler give a promo, or, things of that nature, like things that build more hype for things. So you're the promoter, and that's your goal, is to try to get as much ratings as possible. Ratings are the victory points. Money is just what allow you to try to drive towards more ratings. So that's basically the idea of the game. Right now I'm trying to work out exactly how I want to set the wrestlers up. Right now each one is going to have 3 stats. They're going to have one that's based on their charisma, one that's based on their ring work, and one that's based on their mic work. So you may have somebody like The Undertaker, whose mic work is average at best, his ring work is better than average, and his charisma is off the charts. I mean, you have to have a really high charisma in order to pull off a gimmick of being an undead Undertaker who, for some reason, wrestles. Hulk Hogan is another example of a really high charisma, but he has less than average ring work, less than average mic work, or maybe average mic work. Less than average is a little mean, but each wrestler will have those kinds of traits, those 3 stats, and then you'll be able to use things to modify them, and then the amount of push that a wrestler has will add to their stats as well, and the stats will help you determine how much of a draw that wrestler is. So, if you put a really good wrestler against a really, bad wrestler, it's not going to be that much of a draw, because the really bad wrestler's stats are going to kind of pull everything down. So you want to kind of match wrestlers who are roughly even, so that the crowd's excited about it. And you can't have the same guy win all the time, unless you're Vince McMahon and it's John Cena. But I digress. You can't have the same man win all the time, or that becomes really boring. So you've got to kind of mix it up. You could have, a squash match where, you have somebody who's really good beat somebody who's not really good. It won't earn you a lot of ratings, but it might earn that guy some push, so that when you use them next time, they'll be a much bigger draw. So all sorts of different considerations and all sorts of things that I want to throw into the game. But it's kind of my grail design project. I've been terrified of starting, simply because I've been terrified of screwing it up. And Gil Hova said something on the blog, on not on a blog, but on Twitter earlier, saying that that a designer should seek to fail as fast as possible. And I know he's not the first person who said it, but I was reading it on his Twitter feed as advice he would give to a new designer. And it really got me thinking, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and start working on it and get it out there, and it will probably suck, but if it sucks now, I can make it a little bit better each time and make it suck a little bit less, and, you know, eventually I'll have a game that I'm totally enamored with out there in the world that I want to see exist. Um, you know, it's a very personal design for me because it's wrestling is my other big hobby, my hobby that isn't board gaming. So I really bringing those two together is a big thing for me. And wrestling is all about economics. It's not really an athletic contest, though it does involve athleticism. It's all about economics, so it's a different take on it. Like the Superstar Showdown game looks really awesome, but again, it's simulating an actual athletic fight or an actual contest between two individuals, and I already have games like BattleCon or Yomi or various games like that give me that kind of a feel. I don't need another one of those. What I want is the, put me in the millionaire's suit and let me, run things and see how well I can do. So that's the idea in a very large nutshell, as I see that this has gone on about 16 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and end it here for today. If you stayed and listened to all of this, that's awesome. If you're at all interested in the idea or excited about the idea, please let me know, because I'm going to rely on a little bit of external motivation here and there to keep me going, but this is the big thing that I want to conquer next. All the other games are still being designed and still being worked on, but this is the baby, the one that I want to kind of bring out for everybody to play and enjoy. So anyway, that's it for tonight, so thank you guys, and see you later.